The year was 1984. Apple had just launched the Macintosh, and the personal computer was undergoing a revolution. Amidst this technological upheaval, something else was brewing in the background, something that would fundamentally reshape the business world. While spreadsheets and word processors were well on their way to revolutionizing homes and businesses everywhere, a third software category was about to fundamentally reshape the operations of corporate America. This is the story of the presentation software wars, where we begin with an MIT professor who came up with a software product called Execuvision. It was a revelation for the business world and became quite a profitable venture early on. Unfortunately for the MIT professor, his company would not live on to reap the rewards of the revolution that it had started, because just a few years after it was created, it would cease to exist, being a victim to the unforgiving, fast-changing environment of the early computer industry. Execuvision's demise left the market wide open for new competitors to emerge. These new competitors fought a fierce battle until two among them emerged as market leaders, one of which was created just a few minutes from where the MIT professor had created Execuvision on the MIT campus. The two software products, called Harvard Graphics and Lotus Freelance Software, would only spend a short time at the helm of the presentation software market, as they would be wiped out by the emergence of Microsoft PowerPoint, a product that almost never was because of Bill Gates' initial opposition. But thankfully for Bill Gates and Microsoft, PowerPoint ultimately crushed all its competitors and ended up commanding more than 60% of the modern presentation software market on the back of some shrewd and questionable business tactics by Microsoft and Bill Gates. This is the story of the presentation software wars, how digital slides reshaped the business world. Our story begins with a small company with a big idea. Back in the early 80s, big corporate companies had personnel and sometimes entire departments dedicated to creating and presenting information for client pitches or internal business presentations. A whole team would be dedicated to just crafting the visual elements of the presentation. An MIT Sloan School professor by the name of Hu Min Tong identified this problem in an article called A New Direction in Personal Computer Software. He saw that the time executives and managers spent in meetings or in preparation for meetings was way too much. He pointed out in his article that top managers spent about 80% of their time working on presentations and reports for upcoming meetings. It truly puzzled him how much time was being wasted in corporate America, because at the time, business personal computers only represented information in numeric form, in text, and in simple charts and graphs. A crucial missing component was the ability to present and manipulate visual and pictorial data in real time. He envisioned a software that could create sophisticated slideshows filled with images, charts, and graphs that could be run on the newly popular IBM PCs. So he created a program that did just that, allowing people to craft presentations digitally using microcomputers instead of physical printouts and cutouts. It was called Execuvision, created by VC, and it became the very first presentation software for microcomputers ever created. Execuvision, which ran on the IBM PC, cost $400 but also required libraries of images and icons that came separately at $90 on a floppy disk. The software was quite pricey, but the cost savings it brought to businesses and corporate America at large were huge. No longer did businesses need to have mini art departments dedicated to the visual aspects of presentations, but one person could write and design their own presentation with just a computer. What made Execuvision truly groundbreaking was its graphical interface. In an era dominated by text-based software, Execuvision allowed users to integrate colorful graphics with text, creating visually appealing presentations that were a far cry from the dull slides of the past. Execuvision quickly became a hit in the business world. As more and more companies adopted personal computers, the software became a go-to tool for creating presentations. It was marketed as a way to make every manager a powerful communicator, able to share their ideas visually with ease. They positioned the software as a way to save time, boost productivity, and improve communication. And it worked. Execuvision was used by Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and educational institutions. For a time, it seemed like Execuvision had struck gold. But as with many tech innovations of the time, Execuvision's success was short-lived. By the early 1990s, the software had all but vanished. The biggest reason for this was the rapid pace of technological change. While Execuvision was groundbreaking in 1984, it quickly became outdated as new and more powerful programs emerged. The decline in Execuvision's dominance left the business presentation software market wide open for competitors, in which Harvard Graphics and Lotus Freelance Graphics emerged as market leaders. Harvard Graphics was a business presentation software that was created by Software Publishing Corporation, a company founded in 1980 in Mountain View, California. Harvard Graphics was developed as a software tool to help business professionals easily create charts, graphs, and presentations. The software was first released in 1986 and it was designed to run on IBM's PCs. The program was revolutionary for its time. It allowed users to create bar charts, pie charts, line graphs, and other visual aids that could be integrated into presentations quite easily. Harvard Graphics also supported multiple file formats, making it versatile for different types of projects. The software was named after the Harvard Business School, symbolizing its focus on the business market. Upon its release, Harvard Graphics quickly gained popularity among business professionals. Harvard Graphics shared its market leader position with Lotus Freelance Graphics. The story of Lotus Freelance Graphics begins with Lotus Development Corporation, a software company founded in 1982 by Midge K. Poore and Jonathan Sachs, not too far from where Execuvision was created. In fact, they were both created on the MIT campus. Lotus became famous for its product, Lotus 123, a groundbreaking spreadsheet application that became a must-have tool for businesses and helped popularize the IBM PC. Building on the success of Lotus 123, the company sought to expand its software offerings and ventured into the realm of business graphics and presentations. Released in 1986, Freelance Graphics was designed to complement Lotus 123, enabling users to take data from their spreadsheet and easily turn it into visual presentations. Its quick rise to popularity came off the back of its integration with the incredibly successful Lotus 123. The ability to create professional quality presentations in-house was a game changer for many companies, and Freelance Graphics became a staple tool in the business world. However, the dual dominance of Lotus Freelance Graphics and Harvard Graphics was short-lived, as Microsoft would enter the fray and completely shake up the industry.
How much do you think this advanced operating environment is worth? Wait just 1 minute before you answer. Watch as Windows integrates Lotus 123 with Miami Vice.
Unlike many of its products, the story of PowerPoint does not start with Microsoft, but by a group of former Apple employees. In the early 80s, following the success of the Apple II, Steve Jobs began a huge push within Apple to create a graphical user interface-based personal computer. This followed a visit he had at Xerox PARC, where he was shown a GUI-based computer that looked straight out of the future. Immediately upon seeing it, he knew that this is how computers were going to look in the future. Steve Jobs switched all focus within Apple from building upon the success of the Apple II to building a completely new PC from the ground up. This meant that Apple II marketing efforts saw great reduction, and the follow-up to the Apple II, the Apple III, didn't quite live up to the popularity of its predecessor, with many factors causing its failure, not least among which was Steve Jobs' lack of interest in the product. This frustrated the people who were left to work on the Apple II and Apple III. Among them were Tyler Pohlman, the product manager for the Apple III, and Rob Campbell, the software marketing manager for the Apple II and the Apple III. They suddenly found themselves working on products that, for all intents and purposes, were being quietly pushed out by Steve Jobs and the Apple leadership in favor of the coming GUI-based computers. This was a terrible position to be in for Pohlman and Campbell. How could they honestly sell or market a product they knew the company they worked for no longer believed in? Rather than stay and watch their products fade into obscurity, Tyler Pohlman and Rob Campbell decided to quit their jobs and go into business together. The pair left Apple in late 1982, and by early 1983, they had secured $600,000 in venture capital to create a software company, which they called Forethought. Ironically, the startup aimed to bring Xerox PARC's ideas to the IBM PC and its clones, in essence, to outplay Apple at its own game. In the same year of 1983, the Apple Lisa was released at a staggering price of nearly $10,000. 2 years earlier, Xerox had brought its own personal computer, the Xerox Star, to market at an even higher price of $16,500 per workstation. Pohlman and Campbell's idea was to bring a graphical software environment to the hugely popular but graphically challenged PC market. The Forethought founders wanted to create something even more advanced than the existing computers of their time by using a special programming method called object-oriented programming. To put it simply, traditional programming kept data like numbers or text and the instructions for handling that data separate. But with object-oriented programming, they combined data and instructions into objects that could work together by exchanging messages. This method allowed developers to work faster, make changes more easily, and adapt programs on the fly. Pullman and Campbell envisioned creating a software platform called Foundation, which would be designed around documents. Each document in Foundation would act like an object. Users could combine different types of documents like spreadsheets, drawings, and text to create comprehensive reports. Each document element would be interactive and customizable. The idea was to make a powerful, flexible tool that would allow office workers to manage all kinds of documents, like a supercharged toolkit for the office. Forethought recruited software developers from Xerox PARC who were familiar with graphical applications. Within a year, the company ran into difficulties. For one, the developers grew deeply concerned about which personal computers, if any, would be powerful enough to run the product they were trying to build. The Apple Lisa had the horsepower, but it was already failing in the market, while the Macintosh was deemed too feeble, and the IBM PC was still far behind where Forethought had hoped and planned it would be. In addition to this, they had inked a deal with Oracle that left Oracle in charge of writing the database software for the Foundation software. Oracle fell behind schedule and said they'd need about another year to finish the database code. This meant that the launch of Foundation would be delayed. Forethought was perilously low on funds, and it didn't have the resources to develop a database on its own. The company was facing bankruptcy. However, rather than liquidate the firm, management and investors decided to pivot. Work on Foundation was set aside while the firm worked on software publishing, that is, manufacturing, marketing, and supporting computer programs written by other companies or individuals. Forethought's publishing arm produced software for the Apple Macintosh under the brand name Macware, and it was a success. Its biggest hit, oddly enough, was a database program for the Macintosh called FileMaker. With brightening finances from the sales of FileMaker, Forethought began to develop a new software product of its own. This new effort was the brainchild of Robert Gaskins, who had been hired to lead Forethought's product development. Gaskins was a polymath who had simultaneously pursued PhDs in English, linguistics, and computer science at UC Berkeley before joining the growing technology industry. Gaskins spotted an opportunity in the presentation software market and believed they could apply some of the ideas from the Foundation software product that the company had set aside. He called the new product Presenter, and he aimed to get it onto IBM PCs. But Robert Gaskins soon realized that the Macintosh presented a more promising platform for their software program. In April 1987, Forethought introduced its new presentation program to the market under a different name. Presenter was now PowerPoint. The launch of PowerPoint was a huge success with Macintosh users. In the first month, Forethought booked $1 million in sales of PowerPoint at a net profit of $400,000, which was about what the company had spent developing it. When Bill Gates first heard of Forethought's PowerPoint, he was skeptical about the category of presentation softwares as a whole. He was adamant that everything Forethought's PowerPoint could do could also be done in Microsoft Word. He saw PowerPoint as a feature of Word, not a standalone product, but he would soon change his mind. Mere weeks after its launch, Bill Gates approached Forethought to acquire the company. They rejected all the initial offers made by Microsoft and Bill Gates, but Bill Gates' team continued to negotiate. After 6 months of talks and tripling the offer price, Microsoft finally completed the deal for $14 million. PowerPoint's market share in the first 3 years was a tiny part of the total presentation market. The market leaders were Harvard Graphics in first place and Lotus Freelance Plus as a strong second. And Microsoft opted to not develop a PowerPoint version for MS-DOS, opting to focus the development efforts of PowerPoint onto creating a version of the software for the upcoming Windows operating system. During this 3-year development period, PowerPoint sales were disappointing, as it mostly relied on Macintosh sales, which was a popular computer, but not popular enough to enable PowerPoint to ship millions of copies continually. The tipping point for PowerPoint came in 1990, when Microsoft unleashed its bundling strategy and began selling Microsoft Office, which combined Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint as a $1,000 set. Previously, each part had sold separately for about $500 a piece. Because most users of personal computers required both a word processor and a spreadsheet program, Microsoft's price for Office proved compelling. PowerPoint's competitors, on the other hand, resented the tactic of giving away PowerPoint for effectively free. Harvard Graphics, for example, wasn't a part of any Office suite and was a standalone product. It simply wasn't capable of competing with Microsoft's cutthroat strategy of bundling. Another factor in Harvard Graphics' decline was SPC's inability to adapt to changing market conditions. While Harvard Graphics was initially developed for the DOS operating system, the rise of Windows in the 1990s required software development to transition to the new platform. SPC's and Lotus's efforts to create a Windows version of Harvard Graphics and Lotus Presentation Plus were slow, and by the time they realized how pivotal Windows was going to become, PowerPoint had already gained significant market share. As PowerPoint continued to dominate the presentation software market, Harvard Graphics' market share dwindled. When PowerPoint 2.0 launched on Windows in 1990, it brought sales up to about 200,000 copies and was an immediate success. Microsoft's strategy to focus PowerPoint's development efforts solely on creating a Windows version for the software proved to be a masterstroke. PowerPoint was used as a powerful tool to demonstrate just how powerful and useful Windows' graphical user interface was. So as Windows sales exploded, so too did sales of PowerPoint. In 1992, the Windows version of PowerPoint outsold the Macintosh version of PowerPoint, with total sales reaching 1 million copies, of which about 80% were for Windows and about 20% for Macintosh. And in 1992, PowerPoint's market share of worldwide presentation graphics software sales was reported as 63%. Sales of PowerPoint 3.0 doubled to about 2 million copies in 1993, and in 1993, PowerPoint's market share of worldwide presentation graphics software sales was reported as 78%. For Lotus Freelance Graphics, its decline was a consequence of Lotus 1.2.3. Lotus had a suite of applications that could compete with Microsoft, but as soon as Excel became the standard of finance in corporate America, Lotus 1.2.3 began to decline, and as a consequence, people automatically chose PowerPoint over Lotus due to its familiar user interface and integration with Microsoft Excel. In 1995, IBM acquired Lotus Development Corporation, and while IBM continued to support and update some Lotus products, Freelance Graphics was not a priority. By the late 1990s, Freelance Graphics had become a niche product. By 1997, PowerPoint sales had doubled again to more than 4 million copies. By 1997, over 20 million copies of PowerPoint were in use, and the total revenue from PowerPoint over its first 10 years, from 1987 to 1996, had already exceeded $1 billion in sales. By the late 1990s, Harvard Graphics saw a few more updates, but it never gained its former glory. The last version of Harvard Graphics was released in the early 2000s, and the software was eventually discontinued. Freelance Graphics would meet a similar fate as IBM discontinued support for Freelance Graphics. The demise of Harvard Graphics and Lotus left Microsoft to dominate the presentation software market. Since the 1990s, PowerPoint's market share of the total worldwide presentation software market has been estimated at 95%.